On Finance Minister Nhlanhla Nene to step down or to be fired by President Cyril Ramaphosa. So far, several opposition parties, including the EFF, the DA, COPE and the UDM, have called for Nene's head following his admission to the state capture inquiry that he had several meetings with the Gupta family during his first term as Finance Minister and before that, while he was Deputy Finance Minister. Well, from our Pretoria studio, we're joined by Professor Tinyiko Maluleke. He is a political analyst. Good to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being with us, Prof.
Good morning, Leanne, and good morning to the viewers.
So we really do have quite a difficult situation to have to deal with, I can imagine, as a country, because we saw yesterday already some of the impact that our currency took. A lot of business people saying, look, we need stability in your finance minister position in the ministry. How do you think this situation should be dealt with?
Well, you know, the finance ministry is the last ministry you want to receive this kind of attention that ours is receiving at this time, especially given the economic downturn that we are going through as a country. I think that President Ramaphosa will have to make a decision and stick with it. But he has to tell the nation sooner or later what that decision is. You don't want this current situation to continue where there is speculation around the Minister of Finance, some saying he is going tomorrow, others saying he might not go, some talking about a cabinet reshuffle that is larger than just him. I just think that you know, not being an economist, I know that the markets don't like instability and uncertainty, and we are in an uncertain and an unstable moment at this time, and the president, I think, will have to take us out of this misery.
Yeah, it certainly is, and especially with our president, who has a very astute business mind. I'm sure he realizes the repercussions of having so much instability in Treasury. A lot of people speculating about Treasury and you know, asking the question whether this has become somewhat of a political liability for the ANC's 2019 election campaign. When we look at what's happening in Treasury, the, you know, the talk of the state capture, the talk of whether we talk of SARS, whether we talk of the finance ministry. I mean, has this become a very difficult area for the party to manage?
Indeed, it's a very difficult area for the party to manage. By a president who is not as yet completely in charge of his political party. And that is the other dimension. A president who has been trying to clean up, if you like, clean up corruption in the ministries that have been affected thereby. And so it's very difficult for him. I just think that the president will have to really act clearly this time around. I don't think it is anymore a question of whether Nene is wrong or right. Of course, lying is not correct. But I suppose this cabinet has got many other people about whom we could raise questions. The real question ultimately is whether the president knew about this and whether the president was taken by surprise by like all of us. And if that is the case, he is likely to let Nene go.
Yeah, yeah. Why not just resign? I mean, why go the route of asking the president to relieve him of his duties? I mean, if he's coming out, he's apologizing. Well, firstly, perhaps we should start with the apology before we ask, you know, the question about why not just resign. What was he actually apologizing for? Because initially what he said was, I'm apologizing for not using my better judgment and having meetings at their home and perhaps not in my office or in a more formal environment. You know, that was kind of it. But what is he, we don't really know the contents of these meetings. I mean, what did you read into the apology?
That's the problem, Leanne. That all we know is that they met. We don't know what they spoke about and that they met several times. For all we know, it could be that they met so many times because he was refusing to do whatever it is that they were asking him to do. We also know that he refused to sign on the nuclear deal. That much he made very clear. But the fact that he had the opportunity to take the country into his confidence, when the likes of Jonas and others did so, I think is what leaves a bitter taste in the mouth for many people. And the fact that he might not have come clean to the president when the president appointed him, that the president might be as surprised as all of us, I think that again is a sticking point. Then there is the PIC matter, which of course has been raised also about his son. I just think that we don't need this kind of attention in that ministry, in that cluster, at this time in the history of the country, given the financial difficulties we are going through.
Yeah, indeed. So then I get to my original question. Why not just resign? Why go the route of asking the president to relieve you of your duties?
I suppose in his mind, he is being careful because he recognizes that a minister of finance does not just wake up and resign. The head of treasury is a very important minister. I mean, our constitution makes that very clear. So I think the resignation of a minister of finance should be handled slightly differently. And I think that's where we don't know whether he and the president are really have really spoken to one another truthfully since he was appointed until now. And so I think that's why he is not resigning immediately. He thinks that he may be saving the country by being careful about it. But it could actually make things worse. I think sometimes you need a quick decision and let the country get on with it.
Yeah. I mean, this could be a bit of an opportunity as well. I mean, perhaps you can give us your views on this. I mean, for our President Cyril Ramaphosa to restore public confidence in his administration and perhaps offer some rescue to the presidency to the economy as well, to saying, you know what, this is accountability and this is how you take it. Somebody does wrong, they have to leave their position.
Well, I think so. It's an opportunity, but it's one fraught with many dangers because of the nature of his power within the ANC at this time. But also because, there are no angels in that cabinet or elsewhere in the ANC. So if he were to act in a very haughty manner in relation to Nene, questions might be asked about other ministers who may have met the Guptas even more and may have signed on when Nene didn't sign on what the Guptas were asking him to sign on. So I think it is he could do it, but I have a sense that the president, until now, he has been a calm, measured leader. I don't expect a rash decision from him. I don't expect him to do a wholesale cabinet reshuffle. But I also, as a citizen, don't expect him to keep quiet.
Yeah, indeed. But we do know that there has to be some form of reshuffle looming. And I say this obviously with the unexpected passing of the late Minister of Environmental Affairs, Edna Molewa. We've also got issues hanging over the head, and you said so, just to quote your words, that our cabinet is certainly not full of angels. We can name ministers such as Batibile Dlamini. We've also got Malusi Gugabo, who unfortunately is also credentials have been tainted by different court findings. So let's look at these issues and perhaps understand that cabinet reshuffle, as you mentioned at the beginning of your interview, might be coming a lot sooner than many of us expect.
There certainly will be a cabinet reshuffle. I just think it will be a small-scale one. It won't be a big one, unfortunately. Look, let's look at it this way. I mean, often the ANC talks about the disunity and the challenge of unity and so on. I think the greatest challenge facing the ANC is ethical leadership and moral leadership. And that is capable of sinking the ANC as much as corruption has been has threatened to sink the ANC. It certainly eroded a lot of its moral authority over the years. And I haven't seen or heard the president talk enough about the ethical crisis, the moral crisis of leadership that the ANC is facing. So I expect him to act in terms of a cabinet reshuffle, but I don't know that just before an election, a president in his kind of position can have a huge cabinet reshuffle. I think it will be a limited one, but better sooner than later for the country and for him and for Nene himself. I don't know that Nene wants to stay in this situation for too long.
Just finally, as we wrap up the interview, there's obviously talk about now the Zondo Commission, and this all came after the Finance Minister was sitting before the Zondo Commission and giving his testimony. How do you believe that this will actually affect future revelations by seating government officials at the Commission who might, I suppose, now withdraw due to the fear of the public's reaction?
Well, I mean, the Nene situation was a little special, I must say. I mean, the EFF was busy stoking the fires even before he appeared, calling on him to come clean. If not, they will reveal more and so on. So I don't know that every person who appears before the commission will be facing the same kind of odds. I mean, the Zondo Commission is working. If it gets the country talking, if it gets the kind of responses that we have seen coming from the citizenry, coming from the opposition parties, then it is working, because a commission's work is not about the report only, the outcome. It is about the process and what happens in between. And I think we should be thankful that the Zondo Commission is sitting and getting us to examine ourselves as a country.
Leave it there for this morning. Thank you so much for talking to us. Of course, always giving us his great views. Professor Tinyiko Maluleke, political analyst, joining us from our Pretoria studios. Thank you very, very much. Let's take a break here.